Hi, today I wanted to talk about one of my favorite topics, spirituality in birth. My name is Kaurina Danu, and I've been a birth doula for almost 20 years. And I teach prenatal classes online, and I'm also an emotional trauma healer and mom of four. And one of my main themes that I advocate about is that birth is a uniquely woman experience. And the field of birth and pregnancy has been taken over by like the medicalization of birth. And the history of that has come out of a male perspective. And so when you have an experience that is taught by, or like the narrative of the experience is described from the perspective of the outsider as opposed to the perspective of the person actually doing the thing, it's a very skewed perspective, and it's missing huge chunks of knowledge. So I would like to bring back the knowledge of birth to the experience of the women birthing, right? So it makes perfect sense, obviously. So from the perspective of the people doing the birthing, which is the mother's birthing, what is the experience of pregnancy and birth and early parenting? And like when you, let's say you're a new mom and first time mom, and you get pregnant, and then you're looking for information to learn about all the stuff, because we don't learn about this typically in normal life anymore in the modern world. And so we go to these external sources, the internet or books, and they're mostly written by the experts. And it's all about like what is happening physically, what's happening medically. A lot of it is very like based on what could go wrong, what complications could happen, and it can be very fear-based, and it kind of detaches you from your own inner knowing, like your own, like, because it's happening in you. You can feel it. You're in communication with your baby all the time via the hormones, because the hormones is a form of communication, and it goes back and forth through the placenta. So you actually know what's happening in your body. You can feel it. And yet most first-time moms just kind of don't know that that's a source of information, and so they're looking outside for information. And then what is also missing is the emotional, social, and like spiritual aspects of the experience of pregnancy and birth and early parenting. So if you have comments, I'm curious to know about your personal experience. I have my own 4 children, and I have listened to the stories of hundreds of women and their own experience, the emotional, spiritual experience of pregnancy, birth, and early parenthood. And there's some really, really fascinating stories. So for example, with myself, I saw my children before I was pregnant with them. And for example, with my oldest child, I had dreams since I was 15 years old. I had recurring dreams every few months, or that I was a woman and I had a daughter. And in every dream, I was like a different woman, different race, different continent, and had a different daughter. But it was this recurring theme of having a daughter. And then when I was in university in my early 20s, I had the sensation of this girl spirit sitting on my right shoulder and kind of whispering to me, like, you need to have a baby. And I was not at all thinking about kids. I wasn't interested in having kids. I was focused on my university and like very intellectual, and it was just like, like whispering periodically, you need to have a baby. And I could feel the essence of her spirit sitting right there, and it was definitely like, it felt like a female spirit. And so so I did have my first child, and when I was pregnant, I was kind of like, like when you're pregnant, you're like, oh, do you think it's going to be a boy or a girl? And I could only feel like the essence of a girl, and I was like kind of stressed out because I was like, oh my God, what if it's a boy? I feel like I can't really connect to that. Like I just feel like it's a girl, and I was a first time mom, so I was like super stressed out about that. And then it turned out it was a girl, and I was like, oh my gosh, it was that spirit. And it was interesting because like when she was born, and like the midwife put her on my chest, and I kind of looked down and she looked up, and we made eye contact, and the first thought in my head was, oh, I know you. And then the second thought in my head was, now I can have a boy. It's just, it seems so bizarre. And so with my second child, again, like I didn't find out when I was pregnant if it was a boy or a girl or anything. And I was like, I think several months before I was pregnant with him, that was like, my daughter was already 3 by that time. Several months before I was pregnant with him, I felt this whoosh on my right shoulder again. It felt like a boy spirit, like, and I was like, oh my gosh, I was just so overwhelmed with looking after, my daughter was like I was so intense, she was 3, and I was trying to work, and we were like traveling countries, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not ready for another child yet. And then the whoosh kind of like whooshed away. And then a few months later, when I felt kind of ready, I felt the whoosh come back again, and it was like more gentle that time. And then and that was, so then I was pregnant, and it was hilarious. So I told my daughter, she was 3 years old, I was like, oh, mommy's got a baby in my tummy. And my daughter instantly goes, she's like, the jealousy, and it was hilarious. She goes like, I hate him. I don't know if you've experienced that with your kids, but first of all, like the instant jealousy and like, was hilarious. But also she said, I hate him. Like she already knew it was going to be a boy. Like, how did she know that? And it was funny because as it plays out, through their lives as children, they had, she had a very love-hate relationship with him. And now they're both adults, and now they get along great. But it was just hilarious, like how she already knew what was to come. So anyway, so that was my second pregnancy. And in my second pregnancy, when I was in labor, oh my gosh, so I had a weird labor in my second pregnancy. Like it was not a normal labor pattern. And the midwives were super confused because it was, my second birth, and it was like, they were like, oh yeah, it's going to be easy, it's going to be faster than the first birth, but it wasn't. And so it was kind of like, I got to like 7 centimeters dilation, and I was like, the contractions, instead of getting closer together, because I should have been going into transition, it should have been the most intense part, but instead the contractions spaced out to like 10-20 minutes apart. So the midwives were super confused. Meanwhile, I mean, in my own internal process, and also just as a side note, like I had great midwives for my first, third, and fourth birth, but the midwives I had in my second birth were like very medical and like not very natural birthy, which I did not like. And they were very not trusting me and wanting to do a lot of interventions. So anyway, so that was a thing. But so I didn't really have that rapport with the midwives that I could like honestly talk about what I was experiencing. They weren't really listening to me. They were just like follow the textbook. Very med wives is what we call med wives. So anyway, So, because I was telling them like, I'm fine, leave me alone, but they didn't really trust me. So anyway, so in my own internal process, as I went through labor, I kind of was like in early labor, you know, kind of like in the middle of the night, laboring and drifting in and out of sleep. And I had this vision. Now, keep in mind, I didn't check the gender of the baby when I was pregnant, so I didn't really know if it was a boy or girl. But I had this vision, and I didn't see like a child. I saw a grown man. My son now is 21, and he's literally he looks now like exactly like how he looked in my vision. So I saw him as a grown man when I was in labor with him. And so I saw he had like short brown hair, tall, and you know, like that's how he is now. So anyway, straight hair. So I saw him on this kind of like it was an endless ocean with like just a little bit of land, and he was standing with all his spirit guides around him, and they were all going to get into this tiny wooden boat. So they're all getting into this tiny wooden boat when I was in early labor, and they're like slowly rowing through this expansive ocean. You can't see anything but ocean, and they're like slowly rowing. And that was like the beginning of my labor. I had this vision. And so hours go by, you know, like a day later, and then now I was like at 7 centimeters, and the contractions had petered out, and the midwives are like stressing. They're like, what's going on? Ah. But I was again like tired. I was drifting in and out of sleep, and as I was drifting in and out of sleep, I had another vision, and it was they had traversed this ocean and they had come to the other side, and so they're standing on this tiny piece of land, and it's time for him to say goodbye to his spirit guides. And he's like, I'm not ready to leave. And he was hugging them and like holding them, and he wasn't quite ready to be born. So I'm having this vision, right? Like, and I'm like, just chill, man. Like, there's nothing wrong. Just leave me alone. But midwives are like trying to like, no, we need to get things going, blah, blah, blah. So whatever. So, you know, kind of at that time, like, how do I know that my vision is accurate? I didn't know, right? Like, it's only like years later that I realized, like, oh my God, that was a true vision, because this literally is the man that I saw. But in that moment, when I was in labor, I didn't know. Like, I didn't know to trust my visions. I didn't know to trust my intuition. I didn't know. And so if I had known, I could have just told the midwives, like, oh, no, I've seen the vision. But in that moment, I didn't know. It took years before I realized that it was accurate. So anyway, so I was, what had happened so here's the vision of him saying goodbye to his spirit guides and saying, I'm not ready to leave yet. And then what was happening was my contraction had spaced out. And then eventually when he was born, the midwives said, oh, he was born with his hand on his, by his head. So it kind of made like a very large diameter and an asynclitic head, because it would have been like tilted sideways instead of putting pressure on the cervix directly. And so it made like a weird labor pattern, because of when the baby's in a weird position, it can cause a weird labor pattern. And it was a very, very slow process, because it was such a large diameter that had to come through the pelvis. Incidentally, he was also 9 pounds. But it's not the size of the baby that matters. It's the diameter of the head coming through, right? And the angle of the head and position of the baby, that's important. So it was a large diameter, so it took a very long time for him to be born. But he was born vaginally, and he was 9 pounds. He looked like a sumo wrestler, just like rolls of fat on his cheeks and his thighs. None of that, like the weight of the baby does not affect the birth. Like, it's all just, you know, lies when they say like, oh my gosh, it's a big baby, it's gonna get stuck. No, most of that is just fat. It's irrelevant. So don't listen to that. It's the position of the baby that's the most important thing. The position of the baby is largely related to the position of the mom in pregnancy and labor and birth, right? So being able to change positions and move around and like expand your pelvis as opposed to laying back is important. So So there he was, you know, like in the physical reality, he was not ready to be born. And so he had his hand like that to kind of slow down the birth until he was ready to be born. And so, you know, fast forward a few years till when he's a child. And out of my 4 children, he was always the most clingiest and had such a hard time with saying goodbye. So every time I had to leave the house to go somewhere, he'd be like, no, and he would have this long, drawn out goodbye process. It would take 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, and he would be hugging me. And then he made like this, you know, like secret handshake and like this whole process of saying goodbye. It was separation was always hard for him. And he would be like calling me when I was out, when are you coming home, mom, you know. And so it was really consistent. His personality and the difficulty he had in saying goodbye was so consistent with the vision I saw of that grown man saying goodbye to his spirit guides and like having this long drawn out goodbye process. So that was super interesting. And again, you know, like I said, like in that moment when I saw the vision, I didn't know to trust it. But it's only as time has gone on that I saw the link between, you know, the reality and the vision. So then with my third child, who was my second son, I remember like we went to see my aunt's friend, and she was a psychic lady, and she kind of looked at me and she's like, oh, you're gonna have another baby. And it was hilarious because instantly my heart was so happy. I was like, just like, it was like, I was just so expanded and so happy. But my brain was like, how am I going to cope? Like, how am I going to afford this? I already have like so overwhelmed with 2 kids and like no help. And it was like the discordance between the head and the heart. And I find like in those situations, trust your heart. Your heart always is right, always knows the future. The head does not know the future because the head only can process based on the past, and it doesn't know what's coming in the future, but your heart knows what's coming in the future. So it was like, it was rough. It was hard, like getting through the pregnancy with the 3 kids, and I had like hypermesis. So it was like throwing up all the time and, you know, lots of difficulties. But when he was born, because we didn't have a lot of money, it was quite tough with the 2. And when the third child was born, my then husband got like a job, tripled his income, you know, like it changed everything. So it's like you don't really know the future, but like in my heart I knew that it was the right thing and I was happy about it. It was just that observing the argument between the head and the heart. So just a tip for you, like if you ever have an argument between your head and your heart, trust your heart, because your heart knows the future and your head only knows the past. So, okay, then my 4th child. Okay, so I had 3 kids, right? And it was like, oh my God, hell, like raising them, because it was just nonstop, 24/7. I didn't really have any help, and so it was tough times when they were young, growing up, and I had the baby and the toddler boy who was like full of energy, and then my daughter was like, like, how come you don't have any attention for me, always looking after them? And because they were young, obviously. So I had to juggle all that for several years. And I remember my oldest daughter, she was always saying like, I wish I had a sister. And I was like, oh, I wish you had a sister too, because I always wanted a sister. And I felt like, yeah, I get that. She wanted a sister. But I'm like, no, man, like 3 kids is already too much. I can't deal with 4. And plus, what if it's not even a sister? Oh my God. So anyway, so years go by, and, you know, and then one day I just woke up in my room and I saw a vision of this grown woman. And again, it was a grown woman, not a child. It was a grown woman standing in the room and smiling at me. And she had this long brown wavy hair down to her waist. And I was just like, get away from me. I don't want any more kids. And she just smiled and said, I'll be back. And I don't know how, like, I knew that was supposed to be one of my kids, but I just knew, right? Like, it's annoying. So that happened. And then, again, like, I was like, I'm not ready. But then 5 years later, I was like, the kids had grown. My youngest was 7 and the oldest one was 13. And I was just so we're like, so longing for another daughter, and like longing to, I don't know, like my heart was longing for another daughter. The 2 boys had each other. They had the brothers, and my oldest daughter wanted a sister, and I wanted a sister for her because I had always wanted a sister, and I had a brother. So anyway, like I just felt that thing, and then I did end up getting pregnant, and I was like, again, so I did not want to find out when I was pregnant if it was a boy or girl, because anyway, so it was a girl. It was hilarious because she was born, like, my last 2 kids were born at home, and she was born in the bathtub, and my then husband caught the baby, and I was like, oh, it's a girl, but I was whispering it to myself, and my kids were all watching the birth, and then he looks down and sees the umbilical cord and said, it's a boy. I was like, no, it's a girl. And then my older daughter was like so happy. It was so great. It was so fun. And then so, years go by again, and she, since she's older now, but like she's in a preteen now, but like since she was 4 years old till now, she has had long, wavy brown hair down to her waist. She just has this massive hair, like it's her thing. Like, that's who she is, this person with this massive hair. And like exactly like the vision that I saw 5 years earlier, So that's my story of my 4 kids. And I've heard other stories of other women and their, spiritual experiences in pregnancy and birth. Like, I heard one woman who was like, she's like, yeah, I know the exact moment of conception, meaning like, like it would, like maybe a day or 2 later, and she's like, she felt like a buzzing in her tummy, and it was kind of like a buzzing, and then like, how did she describe it? Like, she's like, oh yes, and she knew like that was the moment that the egg was fertilized, and she was like, she felt like a life energy flow through her, and she was like, yeah, that's it, like I can feel it. She knew it. And sometimes I feel like as a doula too, sometimes I get downloads or communication from the babies of the mothers that I'm working with, which I'll leave for another video to talk about. But there's definitely, or like I've heard a lot of people talk about like the experience of labor itself, because when you're not in a medicalized environment that's disturbing and like stressful, when you are in like an actual natural state where you can go within and experience the spirituality of birth as an experience, a lot of women say that they feel like either that you're like going to space and kind of like being like a portal and bringing the soul down to the earth plane, or sometimes women feel like they're just connected through time and space to all mothers everywhere that have ever given birth, and you feel this massive connection, like you're all in one energy. Or sometimes women feel that they're connected to their lineage of their mother and their mother's mother and their mother's mother's mother, and that lineage flowing through them. yeah, and sometimes women feel like they can feel the energy flowing of the baby through their body, and there's so many cool experiences, and they're all real. And again, like, it's about recognizing that the people who should be producing the body of knowledge of birth are the people who are actually doing the birthing, right? So mothers are the experts of birth, no one else. The outsider's perspective is just the outsider's perspective. It's not the central perspective. So I would like, in the new earth, because that's my what I call my business, New Earth Mama Baby, because we are creating the new earth. We're creating the world that the way that we want it to be, and it is about bringing back the power to the person within. Like, it's your inner authentic power, bringing back your power. You are the source of your own knowledge and your own wisdom, trusting God, trusting the natural process, trusting nature, trusting your own body, and trusting your we're not just physical beings. Like, that's ridiculous. We're obviously energetic beings, we're vibrational beings, and we are spiritual beings, and we're all of this physical experience. Like, physical matter is just, new electrons spinning around protons. It's just negative energy spinning around the positive, and because it spins, it creates an illusion of physicality, but it's mostly space and energy. So this physical existence is really, the reality of it is energetic and vibrational. And so that is who we are. We are energetic vibrational beings, and we're experiencing life as if we're physical beings, and that's part of the game. But, like, don't forget who you really are. Don't forget the information that you have access to in your intuition and in your heart and in your larger part of yourself, your higher self, that's connected to God and infinite consciousness of the universe. And that when women are portals in birth, and your body is sacred. So with that, I would love to thank you for listening to this whole story. And I really want to invite you to add your comments and, like, your experiences. I want to hear from you. What has been your experience of spirituality in pregnancy, birth, or early parenting? I can't wait to hear your stories. And if you have questions about birth, or would like to have a look at my prenatal classes or any of my other services, you can go to my website or get in touch with me here. New Earth Mama Baby. Have a wonderful, blessed, sacred day.